we're engaging with. They might share something with you that they don't want people to know. So you don't want to be going around telling people about stuff that you might have heard that someone said. But because inshallah, this will be broadcasted, we want to replace Vegas rule with skillful disclosure. So what that means essentially is just be mindful of how you share yourself and how people might receive that. Because this is not a private setting. This is going to be, who knows how many people are going to be seeing this, right? So that's one thing. Another one is we all have value. Another one of the community agreements we want to add today, we all have value. Every single one of you have value. So hopefully if, as more people trickle in, people might have questions. We want people to definitely share themselves and recognize that we can all benefit from all of us sharing and participating in this discussion. Third, and I'll end on this because I want to jump right into it, inshallah. What would Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam do? And essentially, we want to, that is to say, we want to marriage our commitment to our tradition with compassion. And we see the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he interacted with people, he was committed to the tradition. He did not bend on the tradition, but he also did not bend on being compassionate. So he had both of those pieces. And we want to be mindful of that when we engage with people. We want to make sure that, we're not just harsh and just, what you said was wrong. We want to, give people time to grow. And with that being said, is there something that you want to add? Maybe perhaps something that you want us to add today as one of our community agreements, Brother Jordan?
No, I think you covered it. I would only add one thing, is just being truthful, being truthful to ourselves. Being truthful to ourselves and to each other is what's going to, ultimately open up a lot more windows of opportunity for us to grow.
Ameen. Okay, so Bismillah. So I want to start off with the first question, my brother.
Sure.
So what are some of your early, your fond childhood memories growing up? Like what are like one or two things that you remember growing up that was something that was very fond to you? Pleasant memories.
Yeah.
You didn't expect that, did you? I hit you with that curveball.
So, one question, one memory that sticks out a lot is going every weekend. My parents used to take me to my grandfather's house in Bell Harbor, which is like a harbor, literally on the water in Miami. And used to take me on boat rides we used to go out on his boat every weekend. And that was really a great experience as a young person. I mean, I think I was like 7, 8, 9, 10 before, then I moved from Miami. So that was really a really vivid memory. And then I think also just probably more currently, traveling and going in Jamaat, and going to different cities and localities and listen to these saintly people talk about the realities of the world. I think those are really blessed memories as well.
Okay. So I like that. I want to jump into that. I definitely had that on the list because that actually ties to like one of my first memories of you. Actually, one of my earliest memories of you really was, on these journeys, these little travels we call, the Tabligh Jamaat, So I want to talk about that, but I have another question for you. So scooting right along, maybe that's an appropriate segue. I'm curious to know what attracted you to skateboarding. Like, of all the things that you could have been getting into, you could have been an MC, you could have been a lyricist, you know what I'm saying? Like your brother right here, you know what I'm saying? You could have spit them bars, man. But what caused you to decide, like, you know what, skateboarding? Of all the things you could have been doing and all of the things you might have been attracted to or interested in, what about skateboarding caught you?
I think it was it's not going to be that much of an articulate answer, but it just looked fun. It looked cool, for lack of a better way to put it. But I think that was the initial thing, right? It looked appealing. Its whole aesthetic that you're able to actually, you know, roll and move around the world, right, on different terrain, and you're not really limited. You could do it anywhere, in your garage, in a driveway, in a skate park, and it's just kind of has this explorative nature to skateboarding, where you get on your board and you just kind of go wherever the wind takes you, so to say. So the freedom of skateboarding, the creativity, and the camaraderie that I saw early on, what I think that was what, you know, attracted me to it, you know. And then later on was what further kind of made it even more attractive was just the challenge of skateboarding, right? It's like usually most other sports have sort of a roof to them, or a limit, where you could only, you can only do so many three throws, or you know, you break so many records. But skateboarding is sort of like infinite in the way you can progress, and
Wow.
it's also attractive to me.
Who was some like the early skaters that were like your mentors?
Well, I skated Del Mar Skate Ranch. That was the first skate park that I skated, and I mean, the first mentor was two guys. One is named by the name of George Medlock, who you know, he was like probably in his early or late, yeah, he's probably like in his early 20s, and I was, you know, 12, 13. But he used to take me around to different skate parks and different locations.
Sorry about that. I have to say this. No phones in the masjid, y'all. Cut your phones off in the masjid, all right? I'm messing with you.
That was me.
I'm messing with you, bro. I know. I'll pick it
But
on
but I shut it off anyways. So yeah, I mean, then later on, you know, Del Mar Skate Ranch, that was the kind of the center of skateboarding at the time, 1984 through 1987, which was where like Tony Hawk, Christian Asoy, Steve Caballero, all the main pros used to ride there, because there was only a handful of skate parks.
Wow.
So I was seeing all these guys ride, you know, every time I went there. I'm seeing the best in the world ride. So, you know, you become a product of your environment, and you really just kind of learn by observation, and it's kind of how it goes down, you know.
Okay. So I want to kind of jump into um, some of the topic that I'm like really excited about, and I say because skateboarding, I mean, that's cool and all, right? But I want to get into like some of the stuff that led to you embracing, I guess, one of the biggest journeys of your life, you know, as far as embracing Islam. And so a question I have with that is that prior to converting to Islam, what were your thoughts? What did you know? And what types of things did you hear about Islam prior to becoming Muslim?
I always make a joke, as you know, that the first time I ever really, at least what I thought was a Muslim, or any interaction from like the quote unquote stereotype of what a Muslim is, was from the movie Airplane, where it shows this kind of guy in a turban putting gasoline all over himself and then lighting himself up because he can't stand the guy next to him, you know, rattling on about his love life. So he wants to end it all, right? And so that was my first impression of what I thought was a Muslim. Actually, I think it was a Hindu, but because he had a turban on, you know, early on, like growing up in the 80s, you know, the early programming that Hollywood depicted a Muslim was like, you know, Alibaba and the 40 Thieves or whatever, or the turban, Indiana
Yeah.
Jones. And so this archetype sort of was what was embedded. And it wasn't until later on where I was traveling from cross country from, I think we were driving from Minnesota back to San Diego. And this was when I was already sort of like, had some, I think, premonitions of Islam, like, or some, not premonitions, but exposure, like
Hey,
through
be
like
careful now.
listening to like,
We're recording now. I'm messing
yeah,
with you. I'm messing with you.
yeah. So, like listening to like KRS-One and other rap artists, and you know, it was a combination of like getting the, yeah, it was like they were mentioning Allah's name and a little bit about Islam, and then there was the How to Eat to Live book. So there was a few things that were on my radar, which was like definitely like a little bit of a confusing idea about what Islam was. But then on this journey back from Minnesota to San Diego, we stopped off at a gas station, and I saw this looked like just a regular Arab guy. Like, it wasn't anything special about him. He just normal jeans and t-shirt, clean shaven guy. You know, nothing, not religious at all. But he was making salat. He was making sajda, and that coupled with a chain of events that occurred in a pretty short span of time is what kind of carried me over to really start looking at Islam at a deeper level. Like, I would go to this reggae store where this guy Abdul in Pacific Beach was, and he would recommend me, you know, like reggae artists that were saying, you know, very like kind of quoting a lot of like biblical stuff. You know, he was like I don't know if he knew what he was doing, but it was almost like he was using different mediums to sort of bring me closer to Islam, right? He wore a kufi, and he was a Jamaican guy, which was really weird because he's like Abdul, and it was like I always pictured him being one of the only Jamaican Muslims, but I guess there is a Jamaican population of Muslims there. They come from Jamaica. So it was a chain of events. There was a lot of other friends that were, not a lot of other friends, but other people that kind of came and went. But it's weird, right? It's not any one thing. It was sort of a matrix of events that Allah used to carry me to a different understanding that inevitably led me to, you know, this, you know, Allah fostering this desire to know the truth.
SubhanAllah. It's interesting. You mentioned KRS-One, and you dived a little bit into like hip hop, and I feel like this is the kind of sidebar, but I feel like a lot of times in the Muslim community, there is to some extent like a downplaying of the influence of that art can have in being impactful in terms of dawah purposes. You know, and I'm not saying it has to be hip hop. You know, nor am I saying that lyrics of ratchetness with a drop of Arabic makes it necessarily like, you know, the best form to receive the message, but recognizing that also at the same time we can be intentional with art, and it can also have an impact based off of, you know, which, and a lot of people mention
no doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole you know, there was a time where, I mean, the real Renaissance was the Islamic Renaissance, where, you know, had all these great thinkers converging in one place and in centers of learning, like in Egypt and in Basra, in Iraq, and, you know, I mean, yeah, I mean, where do you start? It's like medicine, and from medicine to science to math and all these were all, you know, and obviously just poetry in and of itself was obviously
poetry.
What Muhammad Sallallahu came to challenge. That was the challenge to all the Arabs, was the Quran, that no one could match. So which ultimately, you know, it not really good to say this, but you know, in a weird kind of tongue-in-cheek way, you know, you could say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the best, you know, MC, even though it's not.
Hey, bro. Hey.
That's the reality.
I'm telling you, no, I don't endorse what this brother just said right there. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't endorse. No, I'm not.
but I mean, if you want to look at the root of all wisdom and you know and art form, I mean, it's all from Allah, is what I'm saying.
No doubt.
And the Quran is the ultimate challenge to any rapper. I've become more and more disenchanted with rap music over the recent years, and with just in general with the music industry. But no doubt that definitely there's been good to come from, you know, like I'm a product of that for sure. And yeah, I'm really a product of Malcolm X, to be honest.
Oh, no, let's talk about that.
Yeah, Malcolm was the reason really that I was influenced to look into Islam. You know, Allah,
man.
I mean, and people like take his name in that way a lot, but I really mean that seeing that Spike Lee movie of Malcolm and seeing that it was possible for someone that was a kind of a criminal to transform themselves and reinvent themselves into someone noble and honorable, that in and of itself was what it was attractive. And that was a very powerful realization for me that Islam could be that source for me to make a change in my life, because I didn't like myself, before Islam. So
That's remind me of a Oscar Wilde quote. Every saint has a past and every sinner has a future, as the saying goes. That just reminded me of that. This, I feel like, it's a good way to segue into going back to what you said when you saw this person, I think, at the gas station. The other brother who was making sajda. So, how old were you? How old were you? And what were the thoughts coming into your mind when you first converted? And then also, what were some of the challenges that you anticipated? Maybe some of the challenges did not come to fruition, but like, what are some of the things where, as you were deciding that, I'm going to convert to Islam, what were some of the external pressures, if you will, that you were thinking about, like, what will so-and-so say? Or how do I feel about this? Like, these Muslims are kind of, I don't know, like, what are some of the things that might have been challenges to this triumphant victory of you embracing Islam?
It's weird. I don't really. I mean, if I look at that man who was in that gas station and I think back at what I might have been going through, I think I was 19 years old, and what might have been going through my head at the time when I looked at him was him putting his face on the ground in sajda. Like, that is the picture I remember so vividly of him. And what I remember thinking in my heart was, that man is free. Like that's, I said, that man there has something that I don't have, and he's free. Those were the kind of the sentiments. But as far as, like, pre-Islam and like what people will think, I didn't even care at that point, honestly, because I grew up in a Jewish family. I experienced, I guess, some of the prejudices, a little bit like lightweight prejudices, just being a Jewish boy growing up. But then being a skateboarder, I also experienced those prejudices because skateboarding was not cool at the time and people made fun of skateboarders. So becoming Muslim was kind of like, it wasn't really like any different than what I had previously experienced.
So you already
I already was used to the ridicule. So I was like, cool. Like, I mean, to be honest with you, it was, my objective was I want to get close to Allah, and anyone who wants to get in the way of that, they're gonna get ran over.
Subhanallah. Hit upside the head with a skateboard. Bow, like what?
Well, yeah, I mean, just like literally, like, I just didn't even want to, like, it wasn't more of like from a physical standpoint, but it was, just, I didn't want to waste the time with anything that was going to get in the way of my relationship with Allah.
That's what's funny thing about it? I will say this. One thing I do appreciate about you. So the community agreement that you added, the idea of like keeping it real, being authentic, telling the truth, basically. One thing that I will say is consistent from like me knowing you, from the time that I've known you, like you have been, I for all intents and purposes, the same dude. Like you're the same dude when like I'm talking to you. You're the same person when I see you at the masjid. You're the same. Like you are authentic, and I feel like in this world, people say that they like authenticity, and they want that, but I feel like people really don't want people to keep it real. Like, you know what I mean? So one thing I will say is, and because of that, you have a lot of people. You have a lot of people who, and it's just saying it, the truth, man. Like, you have a lot of people who, I feel like you may ruffle feathers because you are, like, I see that. Like, you're sincere. Like, this is what I believe. I'm going to do it. I don't care what y'all, what y'all thinking. I'm going to do it. You know what I'm saying? And I feel that's a beautiful trait, man. May Allah bless you and preserve you.
I mean, I hope it's true. I appreciate that, though.
Yeah.
So my dad was very, my dad would talk to anyone, anywhere, anytime. and he treated everyone the same, which is funny because it was later on after he passed away, it really like sunk in that he had a very like prophetic quality, because Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was
True.
very much like that. You know, it wasn't like he spoke to everyone the same. And I'm not, you know, we only hope that Allah gives us that quality in its true form. But my
True.
dad, I think that might be something I got from my dad.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
So you're 19.
19.
You're embracing this tradition. Who did? Because I'm curious to know who did you convert? Like, do you take shahada with? Like, what was the building? What did it smell like? What was cooking in the background? Please tell me it wasn't Folgers, because we don't rock with Folgers, bro.
Folgers might have been what was. No
offense to Folgers.
Folgers instant. No.
I'll give it that. That's a bad bid, bro. That's a bad bid there.
No, I don't think there was any Folgers. I can't remember, but I took shahada in a garage, and it was from the brothers Harun and Israel Ortiz.
Oh, subhanallah. Yes.
And,
I remember them brothers.
I
remember them brothers.
Abdul Mateen. You know, it was these brothers that were sort of rogue brothers from the community that would go out and just give dawah, but they were under kind of the guidance of a local imam that was kind of teaching them how to give dawah, and then they would go out and they would just sort of call people randomly off the street, really. And I was one of those people that they gave dawah to right in front of Seaport Village down in San Diego.
Subhanallah.
And then I took that was a Friday. I jumped in the back of their truck to the prayed Juma with them in right off of El Cajon Boulevard in that small masjid. And then they sent me home with the Quran. I read it over the weekend, and I took shahada on Sunday, alhamdulillah, at their garage. And so, yeah.
SubhanAllah. So, true story. About the garage brother. I mean, Allah bless them in their efforts. So I was in San Diego, obviously. That's where we met. And I remember as a young kid, I was attending a madrasa, at Masjid Noor. You remember, So imagine this Black American Muslim boy walking down Al Cajon Avenue all the way to 50th University, right? Wearing an imama, wearing like a I kid you not, bro. So I remember I was walking down. I don't know if this is skillful. I said skillful disclosure at the beginning, but I'm just gonna throw this in there, man. Lower the waterline, man. See where it falls. Tapping into my inner Jordan. You know what I mean? So I was walking down the street, and I remember the brothers. I used to pass the house on my way to you call it Masjid Noor. And
on that side road, right?
Yes. So as I was passing,
Altadena, I think.
Yes. And the brothers were known. They're infamously known as the Garage Brothers. Like that's like, I had nothing but positive and fond memories with these brothers. Like I used to kick with these brothers. We used to freestyle and talk philosophy, stuff like that. So I remember I would be walking down the street, and what I used to do is I used to have headphones on, and I would be like freestyling over instrumentals. And I had I don't know if these young people remember the tape cassettes, whatever. So I had one of those joints. It was
how old were you then?
I think I was 10. I want to say, no, about 12, around 12 years old. So I'll be freestyling. So this is back in 1997, I think, 1997.
Yeah.
So I'll be freestyling, and I remember the brother, he saw me like a day after, because he would be like, yo, bro, I already know what you're doing, bro. There's either two things going on with you. One, either you're crazy, or two, you're an MC. Because no, there's no other alternative for a brother who's walking around going like this. I've heard that. Alhamdulillah, fond memories. But anyways,
well, Harun's brother was a really great MC.
Oh, subhanAllah.
And they produced some pretty interesting uh, stuff. But yeah, I know all about walking around that area with turbans and staff. I would walk all the way from Lemon Grove Masjid all the way to Masjid Noor barefooted with a staff,
Oh,
barefoot,
oh,
because I
okay.
wanted to, yeah, barefoot because
Walking Jamaat. Okay.
I wanted to feel the reality of what it might be during the time of Sahaba.
That's next level stuff, bro. I I I I had to have my Adidas on, man. My
Yeah,
Adidas.
well,
So
of
that's next
course,
level.
because go ahead.
That's next level. Bismillah, bro. Keep talking. Trying to outshine a brother. It's all good. When
Yeah,
you feel insecure,
we didn't
insignificant.
need it. We didn't, what were Adidas, bro? No, that was a that was like a random occurrence. I think I was probably pretty bipolar at the time, so I don't think I was all there either. I was probably one of the crazy ones, and you were the MC.
Oh, I like how you did that. But something else I want to throw in. You notice how you said that you embraced Islam in a garage. And for those of you who came here early, when we started, you were in a garage. I'm just saying. I'm just
I don't
saying.
know.
Drop the mic. Drop the mic right there,
Drop
bro.
the mic. You see my garden in the back?
Oh, mashallah. No, that's dope, man. You killing the game, bro.
My little garden here.
Flexing in California, man. I see how you doing, bro. I see how you doing, man. So you convert to Islam, 19 years old. The brothers, the Garage Brothers, as they infamously known. That's growing up. That's what we knew them as. You know, that's like what they were known as. Um, you they gave you a Quran. You read it over the weekend. You converted after reading the Quran. Um, what I'm curious to know, how did this transition into the Tablighi Jamaat? And what are your overall thoughts about not just the Tablighi Jamaat, but movements that are dedicated to cultivating ihsan in general?
That's a very good question. So, I I took Shahada in the garage, but because it was in close proximity to Masjid Noor, I eventually found myself in one of the programs, and someone in Masjid Noor, um, I don't remember who, but they sort of grabbed me, and it kind of evolved from there, right? Because they had the Thursday night program,
Yep.
and then I think I probably went out on 3 days or maybe 10 days. I think I went out on 10 days Jamaat with Uthman Khan and Muhammad,
Oh, subhanallah.
and it was really weird because although there was so much benefit to going in the environment, and because you're reminded, you're really like practicing. um See, tabligh, I think there's a big misconception, but a lot of what tabligh in essence is the cultivation of gaining awareness of Allah, right? And the whole idea of like secluding yourself or going into isolation, as we are now, but in that regard of like going into a place where you're cut off from all worldly things, cut off from your family, cut off from all distractions, and you solely focus on talking about Allah, listening to the talks of Deen, talking about Jannah, talking about Jahannam, the realities of the Akhirat, attributing all powers to Allah and no power to anything else. You have to come out of there with a increase in your level of Iman, and there's just no other way about it, because you're gaining you're gaining a it's you're gaining the you're gaining that sort of, you're getting the food that you need for your soul, and you're when you come out of there, you're like, you have a realization of a little bit better of a realization of your place in the world. And so that can become really addicting, right? And I think that what happens with a lot of people in that is that, although I still believe tabligh has so many, is so, even though I'm not active, I can tell you that I feel like it's an instrumental. It's been instrumental in the growth of Deen, in the growth of Islam. It's been instrumental in the growth of masajid across America. It's been instrumental in preserving and protecting the Iman of people. But definitely, with every good effort, there's always going to be, people misusing it or people misutilizing it for their own selfish reasons. And
True.
there's always going to be shaitan that's going to try to subvert the real essence of the effort. And what do I think about Tabligh? I think it's a great effort. I think that we all should be engaged in some form of that effort, and we are engaged in different capacities of it. So, but yeah, it's. I think that if I was to just kind of finish that thought off, I would say that people in general, when they think of Tabligh, they think of like people that are kind of want to kind of take your time away from you, or sort of like, come to your house and kind of put you in a question the validity of your Iman, or question your validity of your Islam. And that's not the case. I mean, when brothers are coming to visit you, they're visiting you because they're really trying to, and really, yeah, there's definitely like inexperienced people that are going to come visit you. But if you do get a visit from a brother in Jamaat from now on, understand that they're visiting you for, inshallah, their sake first, so that they can talk about Allah and have an opportunity to increase their own Iman, with the hope that it will benefit those who are listening. So it's it's the only self-funded effort, I think, on a global scale, for the most part.
Oh, wait, hold on. You mean the British is not funding? I'm just joking. So
I know that was a long rant, but
no.
That is the sentiment, that it's a British coup on our ummah, that the British had somehow went to Maulana Ilyas Ramta'aleh, who's this saintly figure, and they basically bribed him. Nothing could be further from the truth. If people want to get technical, then they'd have to say and be open and honest and say, well, no, it's the Saudi government that has been, that would apply to. And that is a fact.
I see what you're saying.
Because that's historical data that's already been there. But there's no historical documentation.
Oh, no, you're right about that.
Regarding the Tabligh being hijacked by the UK and all that. So.
Yeah. And I will say, one of the things I really appreciate about the Tabligh Jamaat, when I was like a young whippersnapper, I remember when I went on 40 days. So my 40 days was to Vancouver. We went to Canada. We drove all up the West Coast. We went through all, different cities. We went to the island of Victoria. And it was Richmond. It was really beautiful. And I remember going 40 days, and for the whole trip, it cost me, I think at the time it was 2001, I believe it was. It cost me about $300, I think it was, for the entire 40 days, bro.
Fascinating. Yeah.
And to the extent that I feel like this is something I want to look at, inshallah, in the future. Because what you said about taking best practices from different movements and recognizing that every movement has its pros and its cons and ways that it can improve and things that it can share as best practices. So one thing I definitely feel that needs to be implemented and that could be immensely beneficial is the idea of making Islamic education accessible to the people who don't have money. And by doing that, you make it accessible to everyone. And so one of the brothers, Sheikh Abdurrahman Sanalani, he currently lives in Philadelphia. He used to tell me, he was like, yo, bro, some people say that the Tabligh Jamaat don't go with them because they don't. I'm going to say this real quick. I'm going to jump to the next question. Sorry about that. He used to say, don't some people say don't go into Tablighi Jamaat because they don't have scholars and it's just a bunch of random laity type things. And he says, and he was saying those people don't understand the benefit, don't understand the significance of what you're actually doing. Because he was saying that um, he advised me, if you want to learn, for example, fiqh, you can go on 40 days with a mufti and study fiqh with him for 40 days. Like he said, like think about it like that. There's alims that go out on Jamaat. Go with them. You can actually study with a scholar for 40 days.
It's important to
like
yeah. I mean, the object is not to, the object has never been for when people go 40 days or they go 3 days or 4 months. The object has never been for them to become quote unquote scholarly. The object has always been for their Iman to be cultivated and raised to a level in which it will be easy for them to practice their deen. So that's the whole gist of it.
Yeah, true.
That was what the Sahaba did, is that they talked about Islam and they talked about Iman. I mean, the two efforts that happened in early stages in Meccan period were the talk of Iman and the Mujahida and the working on one's lower self. So those were the two efforts, and it was through those efforts of Iman and through working on your lower self that you arrived at a place where you were able to practice Allah's deen, because you didn't have, you already made, you were victorious over your lower self, and you had the awareness of who you're doing it for.
I mean.
So, I think that a lot of these like current, and I don't want to knock anyone, but I will say that a lot of these current, like these huge gatherings of Muslims getting together, like, RIS and ISNA and ICNA, and it's like, if someone was to ask the honest question and say, per capita, is there really truly a quality of Iman in Islam that's going to come out after that? Or is it more just a feel-good ceremony for all of us? And or is it just there to kind of make us feel united and make us feel like we're one? But we're sitting at a fancy banquet hall and where everyone is dressing to impress. They're dolling themselves up in their hotel room, wearing their best scarf and their best hat and their best perfume, and they're gonna sort of walk the red carpet onto this, into the Marriott, and they're going to get Iman. It's not gonna happen. That's why,
what I would say though, I would say that, like, I recognize that, like, there are best practices, right, towards like acquiring God consciousness, right?
Sure.
There's but I also recognize that everyone is at different places, and a lot of what people are able to receive benefit from is oftentimes more of a telltale of their personal agenda than necessarily it is of necessarily the environment they're in per se. And I say that because you have people who are in Islamic institutions who are quote unquote dedicated to acquiring Islamic knowledge and trying to purify their hearts. And you have different levels of people who even benefit from those institutions, right? Like, you have some people who really dive deep. You have some people who are, just socializing and laughing with the students, while the other students are like drinking coffee and studying. You know what I mean? Like, so I say that, like, there's benefit that can be had, and a lot of times that benefit that you get is in part the environment, but also in part your internal state of being, if that makes sense. And so
no doubt about it. And you could get something from these. I would say that, I would probably be a little bit unfair to say that you're not going to get anything from these mass gatherings. Definitely there are some people that come in there that have they're in a state where they are ready and they're primed to change their life, and it may hit them at the right time. And it may be something super simple, like just a sentence that one scholar said that's not even like a big name scholar, but it just hits them where they're at, and Allah uses that as a means of hidayat and guides them to the next level. So I agree. I mean, not to discount any of those things.
With that said, shout out to our sponsors, ICNA, ISNA, and RIS. I'm just joking. I had to bet I didn't. I'm just messing with you.
No, yeah. People give me the charger. If you guys ever want me to come out and do any talks or anything, I'm totally down to do a pro bono. I just want to build my brand. That's what I'm into. Just want to build my brand.
That was a joke.
I got some merch I got to sell.
Oh yeah. Speaking of that, so two things I want to jump into as we're towards the end of it. Right?
I'm playing.
No, that remind me. So one thing I want to ask you, maybe we can end on the whole COVID, Ramadan, how that, maybe we'll end on that. Cause I didn't really want to make this discussion all about that because everybody is talking about it and it's, alhamdulillah, we need to talk about it. But anyway, what I want to talk about is entrepreneurialism, right? So we talked about your journey. We talked about, your early fondhood memories. We talked about, some of your earlier perceptions of Muslims and Islam. We talked about your journey with the Garage Brothers, Tablighi Jamaat, etc. But now I want to talk about something that's hopeful, especially in this time. There's I know that you got projects that you're doing. You have an academy and all stuff like that, and you also have your business where you sell different cologne and stuff like that. So let's talk about that.
Well, what part of it?
Part of being the importance of entrepreneurialism.
Oh, okay.
Especially looking at the time that we're in right now, actually, because I feel like this is like prime real estate. It's the best of times and the worst of times, as a saying.
Yeah, no, and I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and I was thinking about, if you think about the amount of people that just got the rug pulled from out under them virtually overnight and lost their jobs, right? So with entrepreneurialism, you have a resourceful sort of approach to life, right? It's like if you were to be put on a desert island, or if you were to be put on an island with $500 and a laptop, so to say, how could you, survive, right? And so I think that one thing good about this whole sort of lockdown is that it's causing all of us to look at the sort of the fragile nature of jobs, and that they really are we really are at the sort of beheld to the market. If we have a job and we're sort of like, if the market goes bad and that business goes out of business or whatever the case may be, and we don't have the skills, and then we're going to be lining up in bread lines, right? So I think it's important, especially in this day and age, to especially for the younger crowd, to it's okay to work a job, and obviously, like, if you're working a job, it's and you have a secure way of earning, that's a blessing. But at the same time, devoting extracurricular time to skills, be it brand development or marketing, or digital marketing or print, graphic design, web design. These are things that are going to be really important, and I would even argue that even getting into even trade, like plumbing and the electrician profession, these kind of trades is also good, because you can also start your own business from. I mean, back to Malcolm X. I mean, his whole entire message, if you look at the message of what Malcolm was saying, aside from obviously the whole, like, the rights, the civil rights aspect, or the really, like, kind of and the identity aspect, it all was predicated on economics and, like, making one's community independent of the beast, right? As Muslims, we are so dependent upon on the system for everything. And that was, if you look at Sahaba, they were all, for the most part, traders, and they were farmers, or they were traders, or they were tradesmen. Some of them were slaves, or say servants at a time, and which ironically you could equate that to the modern day employee. But the majority of them were pretty, like, for the most part, self-sufficient, or they yeah, they might have gotten some from the state or the Beitel Mall. But yeah, I think it's really important. What I'm doing now, I mean, to be honest with you, this knocked the wind out of me. Because overnight I had to stop my programming. Um, Obviously, you pivot and you kind of redirect yourself and try to I've been majorly impacted. I mean, the majority of my income of what I would project in the summer, that I still has a question mark hanging above it. What I'm doing now is I'm looking at I just started like a course. I literally just got into it, which is like a course on Facebook advertising and marketing, just for my own business, so that I have I'm not limited, or that I could, because two things that kill a business is, number one, obviously, is lack of revenue and lack of customers. So you have to find ways to be able to generate those two things if you're going to start a business. So I have an online business that usually mostly has been conducted through Etsy, which I source different author. I invested a little bit of money and designed my own a brand called Tarifi Author, which is an author company, tarifiauthor.com. And I designed my own bottles in China, of all places. And I fill them with different authors that I source from all over the world. And the majority of my customers are all, they're actually not from our community. No, they're not Muslim. Their majority are like, just regular people who want an alternative to perfume sprays. So I'm doing that, and then I'm also, gearing up to sort of, I'm playing with the idea of starting my own brand development company and brand and like digital marketing firm, just a little like solopreneur thing, and doing some stuff with maybe video. I'm definitely still playing with the idea. I have a friend of mine who's about to launch a very successful, he built a really cool app called Go Getter, which allows service-based businesses to basically start any business they want from their phone, taking payments, scheduling, and so on. It's called Go Getter. I think it's GoGetter.app.
Okay. So we're almost at that deadline. So regarding COVID-19, the question I have is, what are some of the challenges in terms of as a Muslim that you're going through with that? And then let's say a speed response. Oh, bismillah. Oh, there's the speed. I'm just no, you're good. No, you're good.
Sorry.
No worries.
Go ahead.
Okay, so what is a beautiful thing that came out of this whole COVID-19 situation? We'll end on that note, inshallah, in terms of that you have been able to do as a result of this COVID, as it relates to Islam, getting ready for Ramadan, spirituality, cultivating ihsan. What is something good that came out of this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's definitely, for me, I mean, I've been able to spend a lot more time with my kids, having them there, and really like just being more involved with them, and it's allowed me and my wife to get closer and spend more quality time. It's allowed me to start a garden, and sort of just get into more like the kind of building the home environment. I think one of the things that, I wish I could say I've done more in this time to prepare for Ramadan. I kind of always like go into Ramadan cold turkey, and then I get I guess a rush from that in a way. Like I like that. I don't prepare for it in a sense, if that sounds maybe weird or not, but I like to just kind of go into it with like a little bit of a shock, because it gets me to be more vigilant in the way that just me personally. So I haven't been preparing for Ramadan, so to say. I mean, mentally I have, I guess, but I haven't been really fasting too much. But I have understood that from this whole thing that can you not? Daddy's almost done. Uh, I have kind of understood from this whole thing that from a the importance now more than ever of as we go into Ramadan, that we do make this Ramadan a Ramadan where we cast off all of our doubts and all of our sort of go in with this idea that we're going to go in with an intention to transform ourselves with a complete transformation. And what that might mean is that we go in, with this intention that, okay, I'm not going to miss my salat ever again to the best of my ability, or I'm going to read Quran every day, or I'm going to make dhikr every day. I'm going to not backbite people. I'm going to behave myself on social media as a reminder to myself. I'm going to be nice to my kids. My son just told me in the background. What did you say? Say it louder. Yeah. Be nice to your kids. So being, going into it with this, it's funny, is actually because I think being cooped up with your family, you definitely it's tested all of us in different ways. And we know the memes that are out there circulating. The women have some really good memes out there for that explain that whole thing. It seems like they got all the memes and we don't really have all the memes that explain that the trauma of
got their memes.
Yeah. So yeah, I think going into Ramadan with this spirit that we will go into it with a sort of fire of commitment, that we will really try our level best to redeem ourselves from whatever we feel we might have lost in previous years and previous Ramadans, inshallah.
Jordan Richter, my brother, definitely appreciate you, my brother. This was awesome. Give us a quick plug as far as your different projects, and then we'll conclude, inshallah.
Sure. Yeah. My main project is it's enterskateboarding.com. ENTER. Enter Skateboarding. We're looking at some options to bring everything online right now, which we haven't pulled the trigger, but we will be having to decide that shortly. And then my other company is called Tarifi Utter, which is spelled TARIFEATTAR, and .com, or you can search it on Etsy. And we'll probably have some sales that we'll be promoting, and you can join our email list as well. But yeah, those are my projects for now, and trying to stay afloat with all the it's expensive out here in the Bay Area. So you gotta hustle.
Yeah, brother. Tell me about it. Tell me about it.
But yeah, any support is appreciated, and you could always find me on Instagram, more or less nowadays at Jordan Richter is my handle on Instagram. If you want to interact with me there.
Most definitely. This was awesome, my brother.
Thank you.
Allah bless you with the best of this world as well as the next.
You too, your family as well.
Ameen. Whatever Allah takes away from us, may Allah bless us with something better. We ask that Allah allow us to benefit from this blessed month of Ramadan.
Ameen.
God bless America and everywhere else. God bless my spouse and your spouse and our house. What? And we're out. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for this Thursday's Fast and Learn. This is a weekly program. MashaAllah. We see y'all, inshallah.
I'll reward you for your work, brother. Thank you so much.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.